Wow.
It's like the most sociable I've been since last March.
I don't think I actually know this
No,
many people.
exactly. Hey, Matt, how are you doing?
Good. How you going? You all right?
Yeah, all good. Lovely to see you.
I see you. How's happening? How's everyone been?
Wow.
It's like the most sociable I've been since last March.
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it?
I can hear myself back.
Good.
Yeah,
How
I
you going?
can
You
as
all right?
well.
Yeah, all good. Lovely to see you.
I see you.
Oh, we love.
How's happening? How's everyone been?
It's fantastic. Is anyone having an echo, guy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hearing
feedback.
back.
Yeah.
How's happening? How's everyone been?
Do you know where the echo is coming from?
Has anyone got YouTube open apart from Sam? Yeah, feedback.
Anyone with a feedback?
I'm just going to put myself on mute. YouTube open.
Yeah, do we need to be muted when we're speaking?
Yeah, I would say let's put everyone on mute. Oh, I don't know where it comes from.
Do we need to be muted
I would say let's. Okie dokie, guys. So thank you very much for having me, for being here with me this evening. And as we said, what we want to do is just talk about how indie artists can be, still successful and have gains more followers, and just, in these hard times anyways, go on and do their own thing. What I really think, something I read today that is really interesting, is how circumstances shouldn't stop our potential. And I know it's a really bad time with all this situation, COVID situation, no gigs happening, etc. But it's also a time where we got all of us collaborating. So thanks again for being here. What I'll do, I'll just pass it to my friends, and we'll start with Dan Potter. Dan, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, hello everybody, and hello everybody watching at home. Let's go through which bands and artists we've got tonight. So we've got Matt from the band Apollo Junction, who are a 5-piece rock and roll band from Leeds who've released a debut album and are currently releasing a set of singles leading up to album number 2. And we've also got Jess. Hi Jess. We've got Jess Kemp, who's a singer-songwriter from Manchester. She's had loads and loads of national radio play and has done really well during lockdown, where she's done particularly great stuff doing live stream gigs. So we'll be having a chat with Jess shortly. We've also got another Dan from Teenage Waitress from all the way down south in Southampton. And he's just released his debut album called Love and Chemicals, and I'm doing all this from memory. So I've been swatting up exceptionally well in the last 20 minutes. So Dan, I know your album got some great review, especially from The Clash magazine. And last but not least, I think, in terms of the artists we've got, is Matt from Brown Bear, who, when I contacted him today, asked him, what shall I say as your introduction? I'm going to try and sell you to all these really popular people. And he said, just say, my name's Matt from Brown Bear. So that was it. So Matt released his debut album in the band Brown Bear called What Is Home? And if you haven't listened to it, you need to, because it's brilliant. And he's got a few singles, and his latest one, Retro, was also top as well. So I suppose my first question to the band panel is, firstly, what's your proudest achievement in terms of what you've done so far in your music career? And secondly, what do you think can bands and singer-songwriters do to be different and relevant in today's market? And we'll start off with Matt from Apollo Junction.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, first of all. Proudest achievement probably was we just started the band, really, and we wrote a few songs in a studio together. We didn't really think we'd take the band very seriously, but then we sent a CD across to Steve Lamacq and he played us like that. And we all looked at each other and we were like, I better take it seriously. And then since then, we've been on Radio 2, Graham Norton, Radio 6 again, XFM, and then we've been like asked to play the Isle of Wight and things like that. So things have just steadily. So I guess the proudest achievement is sort of looking back at the first moments and seeing where everything really sparked from, I guess. And in terms of the question you've asked, and I'll try not to be too verbose because I don't want to speak too much, but I think you've just got to be a little bit out of the box really at the moment in time. Obviously, things have gone away from the live platform and the physical platform, and everything really is online. And I think your social media game just has to be really, really, really good. And I don't mean in terms of paying for promotions and things like that, because I don't think you should have to do that. But I think like the days of sort of faceless indie bands have sort of gone. That's over. Like the idea of the sort of hidden band, which no one knows anything about. Even someone like Liam Gallagher is really personable now. You know, he's replying to tweets and he speaks to people. And I think actually when you do that, you're getting a much better involvement from everybody. And you hope from that people listen to your songs, they believe in your songs, they believe in you as a band because they can see you and see you real. And then you hope that when things come out of this, they'll come to your gigs, they'll buy your records, your CDs. I think nowadays too many people are worried about their image and not giving too much away, but I think totally the opposite. I think give the fans everything you've got because they deserve it, because they're the ones. And I think I mean this is probably my mother speaking, but she always says you've got to find a positive thing in everything. And yes, this time's been really hard, but everybody's talking about it. People are talking about the music industry. People are appreciating it more. You know, the amount of messages we've got through talking about our first album, Mystery, saying, "Oh, your song Born for Now got me through this difficult time," or "You've been the discovery of the year for me, and it's meant a lot." That's amazing. You know, that is an incredible feeling for us. And so I think the fact that we've had to go through a really, really bad time as an industry, and I do feel sorry for people whose whole life revolves around this. I don't know how they cope at the moment in time. It must be so stressful and things like that. And I you know, my heart goes out to them. And but hopefully when we come out the back of it, people will think we nearly lost that.
Yeah.
And we can't let that happen.
Thanks, Matt. That was really detailed, and you know, some great takeaways there, especially on the social media side. What's your take on that, Matt, from Brown Bear?
Yeah, I think you know, we've all just had to adjust, and I'm really hopeful that now is the time creativity will come through. Like creatives, I think for a long time we've put a lot of faith as a business in disposable artists that are there to serve a certain purpose in a certain time frame, and bands and songwriters have been kind of overlooked as a thing of the past. And what we've seen from COVID is a return to, you know, I don't want to say real music, but I guess like the idea of like more old-fashioned music. I think it's something like 9 out of the 10 top streamed artists weren't even before the 1990s during COVID. So I think a lot of focus has to come back onto new artists and how we do things differently. And I think it shows, you know, we're seeing, like, obviously you're saying, Jess, that you've done amazing work with your live streams. It shows you when people are genuine creatives, they can adapt. There's a lot of big artists who are number one who wouldn't be doing live streams because they can't even play their own songs. And that shows you where we've got to as a business, where we are unable to fulfill the business if the model that's put in place isn't there. And now's the time to adapt. Now's the time to say, do you know what? Because the world's doing it. The whole world's saying, like, you know what? The world doesn't work for me. Like, the things that are important are health, education, creativity. So yeah, I hope that we start to put artists first again and really invest in the next generation of artists.
Thanks, Matt. Great answer. I know you referenced some of Jess's work there on the live stream stuff. So over to Jess, how do you think artists can be different and relevant at the moment?
Can you hear me all right for a start? Is that all right?
Perfect, yeah.
Brill. Yeah, I think the world of live streams just absolutely blew up, hasn't it? And I think at the start of obviously the whole lockdown last March, a lot of artists were sort of reluctant to jump on the bandwagon, if you know what I mean. Because in the music industry, we have to try and be unique, and you've got to have your USP all the time. And it's a massive part of sort of the business, if you think of it like that. So I think what Matt was just saying then about sort of going back to your roots and going literally right back to the start. So when you first started out gigging, and in my sort of world, that's me and a guitar. It's felt really nice to go back to that, and sort of not be one of those artists that was like, okay, well, I'm not doing a live stream because that's what everyone else is doing. I think it was taking the live stream and then making it your own, if you know what I mean, because I think there's a whole world in that. You can put a gig on in a venue and make that your own. So why can't you set a camera up in the corner of your bedroom and make that your own? But I think as well, it's sort of, radio for me has been massively, massively supportive. I know Shell's on here tonight. I've had loads of support from BBC Introducing, XS Manchester, a lot of sort of regional stations. And if anything, it's brought my love of radio back as an artist. Obviously, support from radio is huge, but if anything, it's more important now than ever. Definitely.
And Jess, just on the point, I know we've done lots on live streams. If there's any bands watching tonight who are thinking, well, what technology do you use? What equipment do you have to put on a at-home gig? What kind of stuff do you have, just out of interest?
I had no clue. Like, I'm not technical at all. The reason I did it was because I had a gig planned at Seven Brothers Brewery, and I
Have we lost Jess?
YouTube, trying to find out how to live stream. Found a free service called OBS. So I found a free software called OBS. It's free to download. You can get that on any kind of computer, Mac. It's just a couple of YouTube tutorials. It looks very complicated, but it's not. Just get yourself a mic, an audience, which I think it's about 100 quid, but I lost mine. So I've had to buy a replacement. It's literally like 30 quid. And that's all you need. Just plug in and play and like be.
I think the sound just went a little bit off with Jess. We'll move on to Dan from Teenage Waitress. How do you in terms of yourself?
You can do it at the minute, I suppose.
Sorry, Jess. I think you might be back, but your sound keeps cutting out. We'll go to Dan from Teenage Waitress. So, what do you do at the moment to kind of be different and creative, I suppose, in these times?
Well, it's quite awkward because I've just released an album, and it's the kind of like Christmas Day thing of like you're waiting to release it, and then you've released it, and you can't really do much about it. I've sort of hit that wall. But I think, just having content lined up that you can just, fresh content that you can keep posting, and things like cover versions that you can tag, and get new people to your posts, and then ultimately get them onto to your own original stuff via that. I think that's quite a good idea. But it's all fairly new for me because like it's quite a new project. As I say, I just released the record, and it's just started the release sort of cycle has just started to die down now. So I'm sort of at that crucial point where I need to be doing this kind of thing and having the content ready.
Okay, I think there's some great answers on social media, on live performing, on being creative and getting back to your roots as an artist. And then Matt from Brown Bear made a great point about many of the people at the top of the charts can't do live streams because they can't play their own songs, which I found quite funny. And now I think we're going to head over to Michael, I think, is it?
Yeah. So it's me, thank you. So I've got with me is Andy, who's representing the management side tonight. And Andy, so you're on the Moonbase Management is your title for that, but obviously you're an artist in your own right as well. And also we got Ben and Lou from Wax and Beans record store, is that be the right thing for it? Online records and a record store as well. And I guess kind of questions I've got really is about, probably to Andy first, about how difficult is it really to kind of improve an artist that you're looking after is kind of standing in the market? Is it hard to break them? You know, what kind of things do you have to try and do to get them heard, I suppose?
Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly difficult. It probably always has been, to be honest, because it's particularly now it's such a saturated area where you know, anyone can get out there and put the music out there. So your competition is absolutely everyone. But what the guys have kind of said earlier on, Matt from Apollo, you know, and Jess, try and kind of have your own identity, really, and that's always been the case. I think really is what sets you apart from the crowd. And I always say to people, I get people getting in touch with me asking if I manage them, but I don't really take people on, to be honest. But I always give them a bit of advice for what it's worth, and just say, you know, have a story. So everything that you're doing, have a story behind it. So if you're putting an album out, don't just say, here's my album and expect that to kind of do the job. There's got to be some unique angle on it that kind of hooks people in, whether that's DJs or bloggers or whoever you're kind of communicating with, because it's all about communication, this really, that makes people go, I haven't heard that before. It's about this subject, or this is the kind of angle that you're coming at. This is the process you've gone through to create this music. And sometimes there's a bit of invention involved in that, and sometimes it's kind of throwing ideas at it that, you know, you're kind of like, maybe not entirely factual in terms of what you've been doing, but just to hook people in and say, this is my story in terms of what I'm doing as an artist. And it is difficult, and you've got to kind of bang on loads of doors, and you've got to kind of accept that most of them won't answer, and some of the ones that do might not be right for you. And there's no silver bullet in terms of success. And it can be a long process for some, and it can be slightly shorter for others. It just depends on thousands and thousands of factors, really. But believe in what you do. Try and present yourself in such a way that people think you are something different. That doesn't mean you have to be entirely different. You know, you can have. So, for instance, you know, the band I'm in, Crimson Bloom, we're very much kind of influenced by Stone Roses and that old kind of sort of 80s, 90s jangly indie sound. But that's kind of, in a way, that's our angle, because we're not kind of like ashamed of that. We say that's what we are and that's what we do. And there's an audience for that. That's the music that we love, really. So, and that's a big part of it, is finding your audience. Who are your audience? Because there will be people out there, if you like it and it's like music that you like, and if your friends that like that kind of music like it, there will be other people out there that like it, and you go and find them. So you go onto Twitter and you see there's people there, and you make connections, or you go on Facebook, wherever works for you. But I would say don't waste your time or don't waste too much energy on platforms that don't work for you. So Twitter works quite well for us, but it might not work for other bands. And they might have, you know, better kind of engagement on Facebook or something. It's just kind of getting out there and just seeing where you can kind of get some connections, I suppose.
No, it makes perfect sense. So have you found then, in, you know, since lockdown, that obviously, you know, it's you are more reliant on social media and stuff, and people sharing, basically hearing something and sharing it and getting the word out that way, rather than, you know, because obviously with gigs you get people buzzing about it and meeting up and chatting in that way, but obviously without it, it's gone in a different direction.
In a strange way, from my experience, particularly with Crimson Bloom, which we kind of, I made the album, the first album, and that was it. Making the album was the whole point for me. I've done that, yeah, and I kind of left it there. Doing exactly the thing that I said you shouldn't do. Just put it out there and thought, oh, well, whatever, that's done now. And then I just started seeing a couple of other bands that were making similar kind of music, and people were kind of getting into them and talking about them. And I thought, all right, well, maybe they might like this thing that I did, you know. And this was going back maybe a year and a half ago on Twitter. I just found people, and it's people like Shiner Sam and Dan Potter, I suppose, as well. But I just kind of made those connections, and people just suddenly latched onto it. Now, that was before the COVID thing. So that scene, that kind of independent DIY music, and those people there promoting that and kind of getting into that and helping those acts were already there, and it was already growing, I think. And I suppose a big kind of band in terms of that would be the Lathams. They're the ones that kind of, I think in a way, are the spearhead of this kind of new you know, Matt from Brown Bear, this kind of, let's call it proper music. I hate that word, but let's call it like kind of, you know, this more sort of authentic singer-songwriter, musician-based kind of music, band-based music. I think they're the kind of spearhead that show actually maybe a sea change is coming. You can't force these things, I don't think, because culture's cyclical. So we've been through a kind of a decade or so of, you know, manufactured pop music having a massive monopoly on the charts. And like Matthew said, they can't necessarily do what these other musicians can do. They can't really connect with the fans in the same way. So I think it takes time, but the change will come because culture's cyclical. You can't force it, but it will happen.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. You can sense it. I mean, I can, you know, me and you, you know, similar ages, you know, we've seen it before, and you can, and I can draw parallels with things that have happened, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and it seems to be the same thing in the minute, and that's really exciting. You know, I mean, that's good. So thanks for that. So Ben and Lou, obviously you run a record shop, and so you're probably in like the boom time now. Obviously, you probably went through a few years. I mean, how long have you been trading for?
Before I answer that question, can I just ask Andy? I'm sat next to a real fangirl that wants a Crimson Bloom record signing. So can we sort that out, please? Well, for a start, the Crimson Bloom stuff's been going really well in the store. We've been trading for about 18 months now, and we've expanded quite rapidly, and we're already in our second premises as we needed some new space, and the support's been incredible. And I think what's happened in 2020 has really given people a massive opportunity to listen to more music, to discover more music because of the time that they've had on their hands. And I think we're in a real unique position with regards being a record store, and people sort of approaching us and sort of wanting to discover new music and asking us about new music. And it's, again, for us, social media has been absolutely huge, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think like we quickly kind of adapted to, you obviously have to change when things like lockdown happened and stuff like that. We were still able to push all the new music and go out doing local doorstep deliveries and things like that. So I think it's all about kind of adapting to what change is going on while still kind of getting the same message out. And yeah, you do most of that on the social media stuff day in, day out, don't you?
Well, social media is good because it gives us an opportunity to push out. You know, there's no airs and graces that we don't have a particular band that we want to push, or a particular product that we've got. It's people kind of just sit up and listen, don't they? Because you know, you're a record store, you put something out, and people tend to say, "Oh, thanks for that recommendation. It's been fantastic." So we've been in a fortunate position, yeah. And you're right, to go back to your question, it has been boom time for us, really, hasn't it? We were fortunate that we had a website that was up and running alongside when the business started, and
that's kind of kept us going.
Yeah, people have discovered that, and the support's just been incredible, really.
We're shipping kind of all around the world as well. So before it was just like mainly Bury based, wasn't it? And now we've sent things all over the place, Australia and Peru and just everywhere. It's kind of blown our mind a bit, hasn't it?
Like, yeah, absolutely. Because we're just music fans, you know, that have wanted to do this for many, many years, and the opportunity and the scope to get involved with more and more bands, with more and more labels, with more and more artists is just unbelievably exciting for us. Because we've kind of got this unique platform, and people just support it no matter what, don't they? So it's just been,
yeah. And we've done it, like we've supported as well. So like Ist, we've done like an exclusive release with those guys. So we met them last year. They were going to the Met, and they came and did a signing session, and we basically stayed in touch, didn't we? And then you got chatting to Andy about it, and it went from there. But it was great because obviously they were able to support us, we were able to support them. And yeah, again, the support that kind of all our customers showed was phenomenal, wasn't it? Because it all just sold out straight away.
Yeah, we sold out in 2 hours on this exclusive run that we did with those guys, and we've not necessarily spoken about it a great deal as yet, but we're just a vinyl only store, and vinyl is obviously absolutely huge at the moment, as the artists will probably tell you. They probably aspire to put everything out on record as well as digital streaming and CDs nowadays. But yeah, it's a unique platform, and when the shop's open, it's great because we can talk to people, we can discuss new music, the human interaction. You know, we're looking forward to in-store gigs again. It's the scope's huge, isn't it?
I think
and
as
we
well,
love supporting.
Yeah, and people know that we're only a little shop. You know, there's only a handful of us, and sometimes we do just get people reaching out, particularly over the last 6 to 12 months, that just want to chat. You know, they're probably kind of quite isolated. They're enjoying some particular music. They reach out to you across loads of social media. They might drop an email. I normally end up replying to them about that, and we've kind of had a whole host of interactions with people, haven't we, just because of the love of music.
Well, that's it. You know, we've thousands upon thousands of new friends have been made in as little as 18 months, and it's just incredible.
Yeah. Do you use social media a lot then to see what's going on, and sort of go, what bands are on the way up, or what artists, and
yeah, absolutely. Social media is absolutely huge for us. Yeah, it's an infinite black hole, isn't it?
I think as well, like a lot of stuff comes from our customers as well. Like they'll even talk to us, oh, have you heard anything about this guy? And then you kind of just end up like down a little rabbit hole sometimes, because you look at them and then you look at someone else, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, I've got these 10 new albums that I want to listen to, or these 10 new tracks or whatever it is, and oh, let's have a listen to this. So it's kind of forever kind of new music popping up, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you get addicted to something and we listen to it over and over.
Crimson Bloom, by the sounds of it. Awesome, thank you. Great. Well, yeah, thanks for that, guys. So, yeah, that's all for me. But I'll pass over to Sam now, and on to the next one. Shell, I think it is. You're going to be talking to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Hello, everybody. I've got to apologise in advance. Lila has been really naughty tonight, and so I've just given her a cushion to chew on the floor. So if you're hearing like ripping noises, it's not anything bad. So hi, Shell. I know that we were going to be joined by Becky from Sound City today. So Shell has stepped in last minute, and I know that Shell has had a really busy day today. So thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, some amazing points covered in tonight's chat, and I agree with everything. Like, it's amazing what all the bands and artists have managed to do, like, since lockdown started last March. But I think we were going to talk about like what we can do now to support bands and artists between now, because it's obviously really uncertain, isn't it, as to when this whole thing will be over. Oh, yeah. Like, what else do you think we could do to help support them throughout this time?
I mean, firstly, anyone that's creating anything right now needs to give themselves a massive pat on the back, because it is not easy to be creating, being able to get your head out of a COVID. I mean, I saw the other day, somebody just took a screen grab of how many songs there are now on Spotify called COVID Blues. And, anybody that is really being able to just get their head out of the situation and create is just, just pat yourself on the back. You don't have to be doing everything right now, and everything that you're creating right now doesn't have a finite time scale on it. So firstly, take a load of pressure off your shoulders, because artists are being able to break through right now. They are being able to make opportunities for themselves. I mean, looking at a local band, we were talking about the Lathams just a minute ago, but also the lottery winners. I remember just before we went into lockdown that I did a Q&A with the lottery winners about their new album, which is now their not latest album, but it was their debut album. They've since
did really well.
I know. They since released an album of covers, like a lockdown isolation album. And now this week, well, after that,
today, wasn't it?
No, they did a song about remaining and retraining and sticking to your roots, about being creative, to try and give creatives some faith back that what they're doing is of value, which it ultimately is, because what's keeping us sane right now, films, books, music, that walks maybe, and the odd puppy if you're really lucky. But and then today they've announced a collaboration in a video with Frank Turner. So this is a band that had so much potential, that have really used this situation to kind of propel themselves. And, you know, I look at artists like Jess, who's, you know, been on it with the streaming, putting yourself out there, using this time to build those connections and meet those people and just further yourself with you know, within the industry, because ultimately it's all about relationships, isn't it? And it's all about, you know, doing that homework you can to find the niches that can help benefit you. And there's so many opportunities right now. And, you know, the internet is a wonderful resource if you aren't sure of where you need to go or what you can do to help yourself. I mean, it's not easy. I've been on 5 Live this afternoon talking about how difficult it is for emerging artists right now. And the guy that I got on my amazing radio show that's going out pretty much now, there's a guy called Havelock, and he's an incredible musician. And he's like, yeah, I had to give up everything, move back in with my mum, get a driving job to bring in enough money. And then I obviously spoke about this on 5 Live this afternoon, you know, how difficult it is for musicians to make ends meet. And somebody responded on the Twitter feed saying, well, shouldn't they be doing a job like that anyway to make ends meet? And you're like, no, artists should be making enough money from playing festivals, playing gigs, selling merch, making records, selling records, physical copies, selling them in wonderful record shops like Wax and Bean. You know, that is the reality of the situation. And we are in this situation where, you know, those festivals aren't happening, things are getting cancelled. So, you know, we're all in this kind of freeze frame situation. So at the beginning of lockdown, I sat down with the Musicians Union and I wrote a piece about radio play. I mean, that's what I do. I work in radio. I see a lot of, you know, I can't always put music on radio, but I might be able to point you in the direction of people that might, you know, might befit your music. And I think I wrote that article and it's pinned at the top of my Twitter account. And if you are looking to get yourself some radio play, I would really suggest reading that. But I guess it's trying to look at things and turn like a negative into a positive. And it's super hard to do that. But I know so many people that are learning new skills. Like Havelock said, I'm really good at producing now. I've like took this time to learn to do something different, and now I'm gonna benefit from that in future. Or, you know, I know people that have got mad video skills, or they've started doing like animation because they want to bring their music to life. And I think it's so important right now to not just drop an album, to really think about it, to think about packaging that, having little bits of content. And, you know, content is kind of king right now with social media the way it is. And like, you know, teasing people. You don't want to give it straight away. You want to make people hungry for it. And I think there are so many things that we can do now, and we've got a little bit more time to really think about that. And you've got a captive audience there on, if you can work on building those relationships on your social media, and not just like with fans, it's almost like with other musicians, with other people in the music industry. I think there are things that you can do to help yourself, but there is no magic wand, and monetizing it is a whole different, you know, situation at the minute. Because even though streaming, it's like, it's great, you've got all these followers on Instagram, but how do you get those people to then buy your merch? How do you get them to send you money? I mean, there's, you know, like Patreon, or I know Penfriend has her own mailing list and a club, and she sends exclusive material out to people that sign up and you know, subscribe to that. So it's like finding a model that might work for you, because one size doesn't necessarily fit all. I've covered a lot of ground there. Is there anything?
That's really, really, really good.
I probably wandered off on tangents. So if there's anything you really want to draw down on, let me know.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful listening to all these bands. And I think like what Matt said earlier on about how it's really important to engage with people now, because the people that you engage with now are the people that are going to stay with you when this is all over. I just think like being part of the whole Twitter music community, especially over the last like 12 months, has honestly blown my mind. Like, we've got such an amazing community of people, and like you said about bands supporting other bands, like you see it constantly where bands will big each other up. and support each other. And I started doing like a little radio show as well last year, so I've been introduced to so many new bands, and there's just so many bands and artists out there just all really trying their best to
Absolutely
the best they can in a bad situation.
I mean, if you look at social media platforms like Insta, how do you grow your following on Insta? And mainly it's like it's not just posting your own content, it's interacting with other people, not just liking, writing a comment, something that can bring a response back. And that, your following is not going to grow, and the algorithm is not going to sell your product unless you're a valued member of the community giving something back, which, kind of says it all really, isn't it? So the people that I've seen progress, even, more so in lockdown, but also before, out and about, are people that go to gigs generally and support other artists, not just for their own endeavors, just to be out and about and to be knowledgeable and to get to know people. And I think, it is hard to go, hey, can we have a virtual coffee? Because it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it?
I get a bit fatigued with it. Like, have you frozen? Is that buffering? No, you know what I mean? It's weird. But you know what? What's somebody got to lose? They might have a spare half an hour, and I think everybody wants to see people do well, and they're willing to help more probably than you realize. So if you don't ask, you don't get. But also from a radio perspective, if you are emailing and you're feeling really despondent because that DJ or that person hasn't got back to you, just remember that they get absolutely spammed with emails and social media as well. So don't take that as a knock that you're not going to get airplay, that you're not respected, that your music's not liked. It's just sometimes really hard to keep up with the administration, especially like for me, when I work for 4 different radio stations, there's, management emails coming through and financial stuff going on. And try not to take it personally if somebody doesn't get back to you, because I know it can be, it can be really a personal thing when somebody doesn't get back to you and you've poured your heart and soul into an email or a message to somebody, and it's taken you a lot of guts, to put yourself out there in the first place. I'm always, absolutely in awe of anyone that can, create a song, create music that, has the power to change somebody's day in a second. Forever in awe.
So I remember I hosted I promoted a show September 2019, and I can remember one morning I typed up this really lovely email with a big PR pack, and I sent it off to loads of radio stations, like local newspapers. Went to work thinking I'm going to come home and there'll be all these replies waiting for me, and I had one and it said, please take me off your mailing list. And I was honestly I was absolutely devastated. And I think from there, I think that's why I'm such a big supporter of new music as well now, because I know what it feels like. And like you say, even I get inundated, so I can't imagine having 4 radio shows. You must have so many. Well, like you say, I think sometimes you do take it a bit personally, and it's kind of natural, but like you say, there's only so much that you can answer, and it's not a reflection on the bands or the musicians.
No, I think honestly the best thing you can do is find out how that person receives their music best. And I have to say, for me, email isn't helpful. For the most part, I don't get to schedule any of the tunes that I play on XS Manchester. Other people do. So I point people towards the uploaders. Jim and Sophie and Clint are able to put a little bit of new music into their shows. At Amazing Radio, I self-curate. So yeah, everything I hear, I will listen to. I heard the new Apollo Junction tune today. Really liked it. I only had 2 hours for the show, so hopefully next week. Hopefully next week. So yeah, that was really great. But that's it. I remember listening to Jess's Christmas tune, which completely floored me. So you're aware of the artist, even if you've not got an opportunity to play them at that point. You've got them on your radar. It's like getting the way to get to you. So for me, it's like BBC Introducing. You've got to upload to BBC Introducing. You've got to upload to Amazing Radio. So I get a lot of messages on Insta saying, can you listen to this? Can you give me your opinion on that? And it's like, I'd love to, but best thing you can do is upload, because then when you upload, that it can be played. If it's not there, it can't be played. So there's a lot of artists that, will send you a Spotify link, and for radio, that's not going to work. If I've got to play something off Spotify, I can't just press play. I'd have to, illegally rip it. like that. And there's things like making sure you've got, I played a tune today that I had to say to my producer, it's got 3 swears in it, really sorry. So that means poor Frankie's then got to go and take that tune, swear edit 3 times, and it's more complicated. So anything that you can do like that just simplifies the situation and makes it a lot easier to get you tuned to radio. There is massive opportunities right now. We are trying to get as much new music on air as we can. At BBC Introducing, we're able to still forward people over to national radio stations for airplay, which is great because you're beginning that journey. You've got to think about it as a story, and BBC Introducing and Amazing Radio are definitely like very keen on that story and progression. Same with Excess. I mean, I remember playing the Lathams as our like track of the week like 2 years ago or something, when I was sitting in for Jim on the evening show, and that was before they'd like signed up with the Island Records and exactly where they are now. So it's about those tentative steps and building on things little step by little step, because that's how people get to know you better, and that's how you get to trust a journalist will get behind you and will follow your journey, if they're if you bring them in and keep almost drip feeding. Don't give us too much though. Don't give us too much. It's easier to just get on our radar with 1 or 2 tracks first and then build towards an album, I would say. Don't rush it out there, because you only get one chance to make a massive impression, I think.
I think it's so really good what you're saying about content and what you would wish to have perhaps more. Like I was thinking music videos. What's your view on that? Should indie bands try to do more, even with their own means?
Videos, I think YouTube is, absolutely. I mean, people have to pay for Spotify. They only get a clip otherwise, don't they? They only get so many, they get ads and stuff like that. YouTube, anyone can just go on YouTube and watch something. And I think if you have a really strong aesthetic, I think like Matt was saying earlier on, you can't just be a identikit stereotypical indie band anymore. You've got to have something about you. And I think that image is key, and kind of artistry, whether you've got a story. I mean, I was talking to Havelock tonight about the EP that he's bringing out next month. He's drip feeding it track by track, but each release on the streaming platform has a different image. It's the same kind of key concept, but a variation on the theme. And of course, you look at something like that and it draws me in, and he's put some kind of what is it? It's almost like animation, but like different artists have reimagined his face in different ways, including like clay. And you watch a clip like that on Instagram and you're like, I'm hooked. I'm delving into that. I'm hungry. I want to know what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, I mean, Dan from Teenage Waitress, I love your song and your video. And how did you do that?
Was that what I'm leaving Berlin?
That, and also You Ain't Got It Bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just used You Ain't Got It Bad was just a lyric video. So I just used someone on Fiverr that did a lyric video for a tenner for me or whatever. I just sort of sent the lyrics and the idea of what I had. And it's a pretty good resource just for getting some sort of visual.
Exactly. So talking about tools, as you just said, it costed just a tenner, and I think that's amazing, because then it gives you those 5 minutes of content on YouTube, and they really, really match your story and your song. So you don't really have to spend. So my point is, you don't really have to spend like £2,000 on a video necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's about networking as well, isn't it? Like building your network. And that could be people, like I've got friends that are photographers. I'm doing a voiceover for a friend for Mates Rates, and he does like station sound stuff. So if I need any sound effects, I think there's ways that you can build your network to your advantage by, finding different people that have, skills. That you might meet somebody who, makes video, who's looking to get into video making, who, would like to be able to say, I've got a credit that I did this for you and I worked with you on this, and that you might give them a little bit of something, even if it's some merch or whatever. I think
absolutely, like all the film students completely, and there are so many film schools everywhere, so that could be a sort of collaboration between bands and uni students making videos.
I mean, sometimes you don't even need to create anything new. I'm obsessed with a band called Porridge, Porij. They're from Manchester. And the last video they did was one of the drummers, I think it was a GCSE project he had. And they just it just fit the imagery and the sound of the song so much that they used it. I mean, he's like, I don't know, he's at uni now. So he's like, what, 20, 21, 22, something like that. And all of a sudden he's using something that he made when he was 15, 16. And I think sometimes you can overthink it. It doesn't need to be too expensive. You know, you've got to work with what you've got, haven't you? And everyone's got an iPhone now. There's so much you can do, or, you know, having a mobile phone. There's and, you know, if you've got access to a computer or a Mac, you can get some free video editing software like iMovie. You know, you can be quite resourceful with very little. And I think sometimes if you've creative, you can create something really good anyway on a limited budget. But yeah, definitely work on those local networks though, because you never know who you're going to meet. And some of the bands that I've seen have done like most successful things, or artists have had a real strong team of people that they know around them, that they've grown up with or they're friends with. And I think, you know, that gives them almost a little bit of an edge.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And I don't know if anyone wants to, anyone has some other questions, guys, apart we're going to go through the other questions that they sent via text. Jess, Matt? Nothing from you guys?
I think maybe if I could ask a question, this year I've sort of ventured into the world of Spotify playlisting. It's sort of, can you hear me all right now, by the way? I have changed my internet signal. Yeah, all good. So I just wondered if anyone had any advice on that at all, because obviously you've got the big algorithmic playlists that Spotify create. You've got the editorial playlists that Spotify also create. And I managed to land one of them with my Christmas song. And it got on the Life Sucks playlist, which is like, you can sort of take from that what you wish, but I got a couple of streams out of it, which is good. But then obviously I think getting on more playlists of just sort of anyone else that's happy to put you on a playlist. Has anyone got any input on that, I suppose, like how the playlisting world?
I've used Submit Hub a little bit, which is kind of you pay to sort of to push stuff to playlisters, and I had some success. It's I wouldn't kind of necessarily advise it really, but it's maybe worth a go if you think the song has got some fairly kind of broad potential. It's very genre based, and they are quite difficult to get on, so the hit rate is sort of fairly low in getting on, but I've had some success, and it does get you out, and obviously it does help with things like your algorithms and stuff. And I always think, really, you know, if someone puts you on a playlist, and I honestly don't know why bands and artists don't follow playlists, because the more people follow a playlist, if you're on a playlist, you know, bloody follow it. Because the more people that follow a playlist, the more visible it becomes on Spotify. So the more likely someone is to kind of stumble across your work. And it also does help the algorithms kick in as well. So that, you know, that's kind of like a really, really basic thing to kind of do. So yeah, Submit Hub, but also sometimes bloggers have playlists and things, and again, just kind of using connections on your social media, just looking for people that, you know, there are people that like Sean, Sam and Dan and Michael, and there's loads and loads of people that are creating playlists all the time with new music. It might be weekly, it might be for a year, it might be, you know, it might be genre based, but it's just like anything, sitting down and doing a little bit of kind of donkey work and just trying to find people that might be sort of susceptible and interested in what you're doing, really. Beyond that, you know, it's really difficult. It's very, very difficult to get on any editorial Spotify stuff. You've got to be saying the right things, hitting the right things, and also your pitch on Spotify when you pitch to them. You've got to make it really look like there's loads going on with what you're doing, and you've already had some success with this song, and just tell them all the really, really positive things about this track, and again, make it interesting, make it, you know, give it a unique story. But it's extremely hard because, what is it, 30,000 songs a day or a week uploaded to Spotify, something like that. But you might as well try.
No, definitely. I massively appreciate that as well, like the comments on that, because obviously it's one of them worlds that we can venture into, because most of us, this is a sweeping statement, but most of us are on Spotify now, and it's the way a lot of people consume the music, whether it's not on the commute at the moment, obviously, but on the little smart speakers and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you can just get on as many playlists as you can, the chances of your song coming on sort of randomly and someone liking it and then sort of going and checking it out and saving it themselves is good. But yeah, thanks for that suggestion on the Submit Hub. Like I've not ventured into that world yet, so I've just made a note of that. Thank you very much.
But also, I think as well, a lot of what you do as an artist is telling people, making people, image is everything, isn't it, really, in a lot of ways. And telling people when you have some success, no matter if there's 5 people following a playlist, if you're on it, tell people about it, share these things, because it is, you should be grateful to be noticed by anybody really with the saturation and the amount of people that are out there, so just kind of tell people about it and shout about it. And it's a story for you to tell. It's another little bit of content if you want to look at it that way. It's something about your story, and it shows people that you're having some success.
Absolutely, yeah.
I defo have a look on YouTube as well, Jess, because there's this guy called Damien, I think he's called Damien Keys, and he is a lecturer at BIM, and he has a YouTube channel, and he does some really, really brilliant stuff and gives some great advice. And he's got an episode called How to Get Onto Spotify Playlists, and also Spotify for Artists have a little video on there about how to get playlisted as well. I mean, YouTube, honestly, I could learn so much from just going onto YouTube and searching it. Whatever you want to find out, somebody has done something on it, even if it's unboxing, and it could just be a bit of equipment or something like that. But yeah, defo check out Damien Keys' stuff, because, he really does know what he's talking about.
Yeah, defo will do. Thank you for that. Yeah, cheers.
Matt from Apollo Junction, where you... I think we can't hear you. Can you hear Matt, guys? No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think my headphones had gone. No, I was just going to give a bit of advice that we did, because we've been on 3 official Spotify playlists, and basically we researched who the people were that kind of worked with our genre, and honestly, it's taken us about 3 years of commenting on pictures, talking to them, making them laugh, funny comments, thinking outside the box, and just going and going and going and thinking they're never going to play us. They're never, ever going to play us, until one day, once the head of rock for Spotify said, send us through the track. We sent it through our songs sometimes, Spotify playlist. Then we did our next single, Borderlines, 2 Spotify playlists. The new single that comes out tomorrow, On the Ropes, who knows, fingers crossed. And then we were lucky enough that our publisher got us on a computer game called Watch Dogs, which I'm not really a big gamer. And then suddenly they'd, like the gentleman said, they'd made their own Spotify playlist, and our track Begin has now gone over 100,000 plays on Spotify just from that. So sometimes it is just a bit of hard work and kind of like, I can't remember who said it, but getting the rejection and getting ignored and all that, and just going, but going again and going again and going again. And then eventually, sometimes something good can happen. Anyway, I'll take myself on mute now.
If it's anything like radio, it's not always what your sound is like, it's what you're up against. Like, for instance, we've had over 400 uploads on Amazing Radio this week. They're from all over the world, and I've got probably 30 tracks that I can fit into my show, if that. So, and I'm always going to go for the stuff that is like my absolute obsessions, the types of genres. So it's always going to be really, really difficult to try and pare things down. So sometimes it's just the same as when you're applying for funding. Sometimes it's just being in the right time, right place at the right time with the right song. And that could be that, you know, sometimes people say, why didn't I make it? Why was my track not good enough? And it might just be there was something a little bit not quite there with the production or something like that. The best thing you can do is literally listen to those playlists that you want to get on and work out what it is that they have that you could maybe take something from or learn from. And yeah, just keep pushing forward positively, and, you know, not take it to heart. Just think, right, I'll move forward and I'll get it next time. And I think there's a lot to be said for being able to do that right now and go and listen to what is hitting those playlists. And yeah, what Matt was saying there, cheekily getting to know the people and doing your homework. Why not? Use the resources, use your abilities, and yeah, make it happen.
I think some of the feedback I've got from bands and artists that sent me stuff is they don't actually know who to approach, and they don't know where to start with that, because they don't know who likes what kind of music. Like you said, you always go to a certain part of music that obviously resonates with you. So, but you know, you're probably getting so much stuff that you wouldn't ever listen to, and then so it's, you know, I suppose a lot of them are thinking, you know, if there was like a database of this person likes this kind of music, this person likes that kind of music, etc., etc., does it make it easier for them, or should they just be completely bombarding everybody?
I would say, like, for me, for radio, if you want to know what I listen to and I like, listen to my amazing radio show. And then you'll hear it, and then you'll know, because if you're reaching out to an artist, to a DJ, they're going to respect you a lot more if you say, oh man, I listened to your show the other day and you played Yard Act and I really love what they're doing with The Fall. And I think if you really like that kind of post-punk, you'll really like what we're doing right now. We supported them in such a place. You can see that resonance. You're going to read that email and go, oh wow, A, it's personalized, B, they've taken the time to listen to my taste. Because, you know, BBC Introducing is different. We play all genres at BBC Introducing. And I like to think on the West Yorkshire show where I produce, we literally play everything. We play jazz, we play ambient, we play piano music. You know, it's not my taste. That is the best of what is coming through on the uploader. But on Amazing Radio, it's my curation, so I can choose my fave. I think there are opportunities to be able to listen to radio in, you know, and even journalists that are writing, you know, if you know of a journalist called Dom Gurley, he always writes really passionately about dream pop and shoegaze and stuff like that. So if I was a band that fell within one of those genres, I'd be maybe searching some of my fave bands that I feel like I have a sound resonance with, maybe looking up who's been writing about them and then contacting those people to say, I saw you wrote an article about this artist. I'm a huge fan. I think if you like them, you might like what we're doing. I'd really love to send you some music. How would you feel about that? You're going to get a much more positive response if you have taken the time to do that little bit of homework, I think, and reach out to the people you've got the best chance of getting some feature or some airtime. And, you know, the one, you know, general rule in the music industry, which I'm sure we'll all agree on, is do not be a dick. Just don't be a dick.
Also, as well, I think a lot of bands don't realise is that, like Shell mentioned kind of earlier on, it's not always the DJs. There's nothing wrong with, you know, kind of making those connections and building those relationships with the DJs, but it's quite often the producers that are the ones that are kind of making the decisions of, you know, particularly on the kind of larger stations and certainly the kind of national stations. It's the producers that are the ones making the decisions, and it's really strange because if you go onto Twitter and you might think, right, who produces, I don't know, the Jeremy Vine show on Radio 2. And you go on to Twitter, this might not be actually true, but you go to Twitter and you can search Jeremy Vine, producer, and you find out who it is. I think it's called Michael Banbrook, actually. And you'll find him on Twitter, maybe, and he might have like 800 followers, you know, whereas Jeremy Vine might have 50,000 or something like that. So Jeremy Vine's going to get bombarded. And here's this fella who's actually making the decisions, who's, you could argue, is more important, who's kind of like just sitting there with nobody bothering them because nobody knows who he is. So you might sort of reach out to the people there, you get an email. It is best to do things solicited, you know, so like Shell says, you know, build up a bit of a relationship and you know, ask if you can send them something and try and do it that way. But you can actually email these people if you can find the contacts. and just say, hi, this is what we're doing, and would you possibly have a listen to this? I did actually contact Michael for Amelia Coburn's latest single. I literally did that. I found his email on or his contacts, who he was, emailed him and said, we'll just have a listen to this. He said, yep, I'll put it forward for consideration. Didn't get playlisted or anything, but he responded within a couple of hours, really. So at least, you know, it's possible to find these people that are actually the ones making those decisions, and sometimes having a little bit of cheek and just sort of saying, hiya, we know you are, can you have a listen to this?
Sometimes you can be in the perfect place, say like we have a cancellation and we need somebody and we need someone to do a live session that they can record at home, and you know, then because you've reached out, it might be that you get that response. But I suppose from a BBC perspective, it's always worth thinking about that. We always have to look at a balance of male and female voices on air, spread of genres, spread of locations. You know, we can't play everything from Leeds at West Yorkshire. We need to be playing artists from Wakefield and the Calder Valley and Bradford and stuff like that. So there is always a bigger picture going on that might mean that you don't make the playlist. I mean, we always have we always never have enough female voices. That is a thing within the BBC. We have a 50-50 kind of drive where we're trying to put as you know, an equal footing out there, but it is very difficult. But yeah, great point about producer having some power, Andy, because as I'm a producer and I'm a presenter, I see it from both sides, but I do see the social media and it always kind of tags the presenter, and it's funny because, you know, it is what it is and that's the face of the show. But yeah, there's a lot more that goes on to it, including somebody who's behind the keyboard. We have a social media guy who's doing all the wonderful socials, creating these wonderful images for the artist that's based in Newcastle, working on the Leeds show. So, you know, there's a lot more that goes on than just the presenter, I guess.
Dan, I was thinking if you want to go through the questions that we had via text, if that's okay.
Yeah, if I had them in front of us, that would be a great idea. Yeah, but I'll just have to wing it instead. I've got a slightly different question, and it's really for everybody, I suppose. But when I was, my kind of genre, I suppose, and time was the Britpop kind of era, Oasis, etc. And all that you heard around that time was band's aim was to get signed by a record company. And I was wondering if you think that as somebody like Gerry Cinnamon changed that, where actually do you need that anymore? Do you need to be signed, or can a band realistically, like somebody like Gerry Cinnamon, do it all on their own now and still have the success? Don't all rush.
I mean, man, I think it's a very different industry, but it depends what you are. Like, if you want to be a pop act, you need a label. I talk to acts a lot, especially young black acts up here. Ownership is so important in that community, and ownership for music is the next step, man. Like, you need to own your own music, your own masters. But if you want to be a pop act and you think you're going to do it without a label, like, you're not, because it is a market. I think it would be like, you know, this is an interesting one because we're all in the music business here. It's like there's a public persona of making it without a label, and then there's the industry persona. Not many people make it without a major setup. You know, take it to Oasis, the story of them being signed at Tuts. They were signed before Tuts. Most people in the industry know that. Most people in the industry don't. Gerry Cinnamon doesn't have a major label, has a major team. So it's like the perception you give to people is important for our business, but there's got to be a realism if we're talking to young acts about what comes next, because we can't have them believing those dreams because they're not realistic and they're not going to set them up to succeed. So whether we need a label or not is totally dependent on where you are as an artist, and also understanding what it is. It's an investment. So is there another way to do it? Do you think, well, I'm actually better going to an investment from somewhere else? Do I know someone that can invest? You know, Red Bull obviously got into music, but they came in as investors. But I think it's crazy in a way. You know, if all of us here knew how to build our house and we had all the tools for it, why would you get a mortgage? And it's mad to me that musicians have all the tools to do it, and we go and take these loans that we can't pay back, and we're never going to pay back for the longest time, especially with the system of music, because the deals are so unfair and they're so weighted. Spotify, I mean, I'm sure everyone here has been following the inquiry. Spotify and the streaming services aren't cutting it. So I don't think labels are needed, but I think there's a reality of like how much we succeed. Let's be honest as well about Spotify playlisting. 85% of that playlist market is going to be taken up by majors. So independent artists are fighting over 15%. You know, I was introduced to one of the heads of artist relations at Spotify a few weeks ago, and because I'm probably quite outspoken about thinking I don't really mind if we're on Spotify or not, someone said to me, "Oh no, like you need to play the game, man." I've got introduced to them, and I said, "Okay, this is where I'm at. This is where we'd like to be. What's your suggestion about playlists?" And they genuinely didn't take on board anything we'd done. They just sent me the copy and paste link of submitting music to Spotify. And that's artist relations. So it shows you where they're at as a company and what they perceive you as a musician. So if you're going to pin your hopes on it, you know, don't. I've been to so many shows over the years where I've been watching bands who have had 1 million streams play, and I'm one of the only people in the room. It doesn't equate to ticket sales, and it doesn't equate to record sales. And if anything ever changes, because right now the way it works for records is like part of the charting is your Spotify streams. But that shouldn't really be the case, because if you're on a playlist, that's not nobody went to do that on purpose. That's like radio, but they're not playing radio compensation. So if that ever changes, you'll see the charts change, because they're not solicited listens. You're not choosing to listen to artists. You're being essentially force-fed music through playlists. So, you know, as the market changes, what does that mean? And what does that mean for labels and their hold on the charts and holds on you? So I think, and another important thing for musicians and mental health, like it's important to be on social media, but do it your way. Like if you're not someone that wants to post all the time, like don't feel that pressure. Find a new way to do it. Find a way to be like your own person and have people understand you as an artist. Like, and I know obviously times have changed, but man, could you imagine if Nirvana were on Instagram and Facebook? You wouldn't think they were cool. Like we have to find a balance here where we have, man, there's too many bands right now who are bands, like fucking bands, and they're going like, great job, Katy Perry. Like, even if you think that, you should be saying, fuck off, Katy Perry. You know what I mean? And it's like creating a market divide. Right now we have no market divide. We just have this one noise, and it's boring. And we need to have competition, because competition is what will breed a market stimulation. So we need artists and to start having a fucking spine and saying what they think, you know. That's just my opinion.
Matt, well, you're perfectly entitled to say how you feel, pal. Absolutely. I think there's one more question, Sam, that is on that list that we're being asked, which was, what's the best way to get vinyl out? It's very expensive to produce without the guarantee of a return. So in your experience, we'll go to Matt. I know you've been quite experienced on vinyl from Apollo Junction. So what's the best way, from your perspective, to make sure that you get a return on your investment?
Our beautiful vinyl. Hold on, wait there.
Here comes the plug.
Oh,
I was about to go and get mine then. He's got it. That is such a beautiful record. Take it out and show the colour.
Quick plug, yeah.
It's so pretty. Oh, it's one of my favourite records on our show because it's just so beautiful.
Didn't put it on pre-sale. We paid for it before we even bought it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that was the way we did it. We we put the pre-sale up, and then by the time we'd put it up, designed it, priced it, it wasn't quite as expensive as we thought it would be. This is a limited edition one. Signed it. If fans wanted personal messages in, they asked us, wrote them. We got a local artist called Burley Banksy, really nice guy, does loads of the artwork around Leeds, great guy. Got him to do some personal artwork for us, you know, and it goes back to what somebody said about making those connections with artists in the area and things like that. He charged us pennies. I think he just asked for a copy of the album, to be honest with you. Then I am hideous at art, but I wrote out all the lyrics and drew like pictures of what the lyrics meant to us, and then we did some Polaroids, which that was quite an expensive way of doing things actually. But we got some Polaroids of some of us, and then made a package. And honestly, we were making a profit before we even ordered the vinyl to pay for it. But the vinyl thing came from listening to our fans. If the fans hadn't been calling for it, we wouldn't have done it. But they wanted it, and people want vinyl. It goes back to what we say. It's the new, it's the in thing. It's exciting, and I mean, this sounds great. Honestly, it sounds great compared to anything. Just putting it on, hearing the crackle, you know, as it says in the Stone Roses song, "Hear the needle hit the groove," you know, and it just sounds, yeah, it sounds brilliant. You can get this on the website, by the way, just saying. And yeah, so that's the way we did it. I mean, we had the fans calling for it, and by the time we'd put the order in and bought it, we'd already paid for it on the pre-sale.
Great. Sam, that was the last of the questions on the list.
Yeah, I think we still got a couple of ones, Mike, you had, if I'm not mistaken.
Just before you start there, Michael, sorry. Jess asked a question about where we're getting vinyl press. I don't know about Matt. I've used discmanufacturingservices.com and also 100vinyl.com. You know, there's much of a muchness between the sort of quality between them. Probably a little bit in price, but there's a couple of options for you anyway. I don't know if Matt wants to.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And we could do a list on something and, you know, share it on Twitter, contacts and things. I think it would be really helpful. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's great.
Thanks to the questions that have come in, Sam, to be honest, because we spoke about the industry and Spotify and
yeah, and most probably live streams, with the fact that, you know, there's no chance to do in the next few months live gigs. So live streams that can be considered as, you know, as gigs and paid for. What's our opinion on that, especially the artists? What would you think, guys?
I think it depends. It's a difficult one, innit? Because we're all in this really crappy situation, and for me, doing these live streams, it's more for my mental well-being. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I love having a gig to look forward to. I really hate not being able to gig. So I love getting out. Well, I've got one next Friday, and I'm buzzing for it. I've made like an 80s set list for it. And it's like the highlight of my life at the moment. No, that's ridiculous. And I know there's a few people out there, and this isn't to sort of blow my own trumpet, but I know there's quite a lot of people out there that I've met on Twitter through this COVID year that look forward to him just as much as well. So for me, it's more of a let's just keep doing this to get us all through. But also on the flip side of the coin, I appreciate that this is people's job and they should be being paid for this art and stuff. But I think it's one of them. If you're wanting to get paid for it, and obviously some people are sort of, that's their only income, so in that scenario then I think they should be charging, because they're losing quite a lot of money at the moment. But then again, I think in my scenario I'm lucky enough to have a day job as well, so I'm out there sort of wanting to just bring the Friday night into everyone's living room. Do you know what I mean? Like, bring a bit of a gig to the to the table. I'd probably have a different opinion if I didn't have another source of income, which I didn't this time, sort of a year and a half ago. So I would have been very, very different back then. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really valid point. And, you know, from my side of things, what I see is, I think it's fair enough that you ask people to chuck something in the pot. You know, if we were going to see you down a pub or anywhere, you know, you'd pay whatever you would there, and you'd have a few pints and, you know, have a good time, and you wouldn't think anything of it. You know, we can't do that. So, you know, I don't have a real problem, you know, with tipping hats and things like that, and PayPal accounts coming up at the bottom, you know, because it's quite unique, really. You know, I mean, you know, we did something with Dan and Amelia and stuff, and, you know, for me, I was buzzing for it. Same thing. It's Friday night. I had a terrible week at work, and I just wanted to cut loose, you know, and the fact that other people wanted to do that, it was like amazing, you know. And then, you know, as you say, and, you know, Andy, you do it quite a lot, and, you know, everyone's, you know, it's a great thing to do, but yeah, there seems to be this kind of nervousness of saying, well, chuck us a few quid. I don't see a real problem in that. But as you say, especially when musicians, artists, etc., are struggling, and I think that's important. Otherwise, you'll just all give up, and there won't be anything coming through, and that's my worry. Is the next generation of what's going to happen after all this?
Cheryl, what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's just, it's something that's preying on my mind a lot at the minute. I mean, we talk about emerging artists, but, if an artist like Nadine Shah, who's got amazing records out, critically acclaimed, a lot of airplay on Six Music, cannot make a living from the current model, then something has to change, doesn't it? And I'm definitely working behind the scenes. I can't say too much at the moment, but on ways to try and empower artists. And I think there are some things that could be done for a relatively modest cost that could really help to support artists, both more advanced artists and more emerging artists at the moment. And I think during this lockdown where, we are taking things really personally and we are missing that connection. Like Jess said, I am totally missing. I feel disconnected from the music industry, despite listening to music every day and pretty much all my contacts being with either journalists or musicians. I still feel completely disconnected because you're not getting that live interaction. You're not seeing a meeting for a pint, the person that's always at the gig that you're at, you know what I mean? And it's just really tough, but there's just no magic wand at the moment. So I guess we've just got to keep going and keep moving forward and just keep looking for the opportunities. The thing I said earlier on about, it's great doing these streaming sets. At the beginning they were everywhere, weren't they? And it was like there was too much going on. Now it seems there's a lot more manageable lessons out there, and that if you can market it for a certain time in advance, that you're going to get somebody watching. But I still think there's work to be done on how you can channel those people to then, like you say, pay some money, because you'd pay a gig ticket for like £5 or £6 quite easily, wouldn't you? So if you're in on a Friday or Saturday night, why wouldn't you pay the same? You've got your beers at home. It's certainly something that I'm conscious of, trying to spend a bit more on band merch, buying direct records from record shops and from artists. But it's just it's just very difficult and disheartening for all of us at the moment. But hopefully, we'll keep working on ideas that I think will empower and help support people. Mentally, it's really difficult for everybody. And, for musicians to know their worth right now, where, ultimately their music has the power to change somebody's day in, seconds. And, the fact that there's not enough value placed on that by the powers that be. And we've been down various rabbit holes tonight about the issues with streaming and the level of focus on major labels and the ownership of that. It just goes to compound everything that's happening right now. So look for the opportunities, be positive, find your way, because not everybody is going to do things the same way. And I think it's finding the way that suits you, works for you, and that feels natural to you.
I've seen a few of those live streams through Melody VR. I think it's more for the bigger artists. I've seen Fontaines, DC and Tom Grennan. They both play Brixton Academy, but it was absolutely, considering there's no crowd and there's not really any atmosphere, what they've actually put on, and you pay kind of I think it's like a normal gig ticket, maybe like £15 or something, but I just really enjoyed them. You get control of the camera, so you can spin it round and see the empty Brixton Academy. But I just found that they were all a really big success, and obviously Liam Gallagher, his was through Melody VR. So obviously for the bigger artists, I don't know how possible it would be for artists kind of down the chain to do something kind of similar, or it's just literally the biggest bands that can put on these kind of shows. I guess there's a lot of money that goes into all the lighting, the production and everything, but I did really enjoy them.
but maybe you know, bands could hook up with local venues that maybe somewhere within the restrictions, you know, have to have some kind of production value. I mean, also in a tribute band called the South Martins, we've essentially obviously lost our livelihood in terms of that, but we have talked about doing a kind of slightly more you know, production values based live online gigs somehow. I don't know whether it can happen, to be honest, but also there's ways that bands can charge ticket prices. There is a way on Facebook now that you can do it. I've never done it myself. I'm a bit of a kind of, I don't know, a socialist in a way. I like to just put it out there, and if people want to pay, then that's fine. If they don't, then they can watch it anyway. But there is a thing called Stageit, I think, stageit.com, where you can actually charge a ticket price, and you're essentially just doing a kind of gig from your front room, or however you want to set it up. But you can charge, you know, £5 or whatever you want to charge for people to watch. And people are generally, you know, there's an interesting statistic, and I think it's still pretty much true in the kind of modern music industry. As an artist, you know, working at a kind of independent level, you will make 95% of your income from 5% of your audience. So, and that's kind of through merch, really, and within there will be a tiny percentage that they call your super fans, and they will kind of buy the bundles, and they'll buy the kind of they'll kind
Sam
of
then.
yeah, Sam is like the 5% of everybody's audience. Yeah, so you've got to kind of think of it a little bit like that. There are some people that will never pay you to kind of do an online gig, and there's some people that will never buy a record from you, and they will only use Spotify. But you just have to accept that in a way. And what you do is you make items of value, and items that your true fans and your super fans will kind of want to kind of shell out and support you with it, and there are people out there that will do that. And it's not to do it in a cynical way, to do it because you enjoy doing it and you want to give them something of quality and value, and that they'll kind of cherish. And you know, some people like the artifact of the band, and I'm like that. I like to have that's why people buy vinyl. They want the artifact. Whether they ever play it or not is another matter. They just want that thing to hold that is a piece of the band, and there are people out there like that.
Guys, so I think it's nearly time to wrap it up. Any other thought, idea? Anyone wants to say anything else?
I just think stuff like this is like massive for this time that we're all going through, because artists, managers, labels, radio, PR, media, journalists, I've probably missed someone out, but we're all in the same boat as is the rest of the world. But our industry's on its last legs at the minute, and I know I'm laughing and it's not laughable, but we'll get there. And this is what we need, though. We need to all come together, because we can't do that at the moment, because we can't go to gigs. We can't, like Shell said, have a pint with someone at the bar that you saw at the last gig. So stuff like this is really useful, and I think just staying connected with people, whether it's on social media, whether it's just dropping them a text or whatever, and just sort of keeping each other going, because we need to keep this industry going. And in Manchester, we've got, and I know I'm a bit biased, we've got one of the best music scenes in the world. So we need to just keep smashing it. I think whatever you do, whether you're setting up a little GoPro in your corner of your room and putting a gig on a Friday night, or tweeting a band to tell them you like the music, yeah, I think just keep going.
But also, that's bang on. You know, we talked about tech earlier on, and not everybody has all the right tech, but don't think that live streaming has to mean that you've got to set a camera up in the corner of the room and have everything perfect. There's a lot of stuff that's going out that's actually pre-recorded. So if you want to quality control stuff, you want to make sure it sounds good, but you can like schedule it to go live at a certain time on Facebook or YouTube, so you can then round up your fan base, etc., to get them excited about a premiere at a certain time. Just, you know, think a bit more open-minded about how you create your content, how you can make it look good, and how you can make a little bit of an event about it. Again, probably to bring some of your community together, because that's going to make you feel like there is, you know, something still there, that you've not lost your fans, you know, they're still interested and they're still following you. It's just, you know, worth thinking a little bit outside the box. There are also people that are streaming stuff, more events popping up. For instance, the Trades Club in Hebden Bridge has definitely started started doing some streams. I know I've been doing a few things with ShowStream. We're only allowed to do kind of minimal, and it's quite difficult with masks on for half the time, but there are little things happening. Even Eurosonic Festival, it happened the other day, and all the sets just went up online, so you can go back and watch them. Probably not as impressive as the ones that Sam was talking about. That sounds like you need a VR headset, and I don't have that capability, but it sounds amazing.
No, you don't. I don't know how it works, Shell, but the first one I watched was Fontaine. No, Tom Grennan it was. And it said like, oh, do you want to change like which way you're facing the stage? You could change like whether you stand at the front of the stage, the side of the stage, back at the bar. So I was like, I'm just gonna go on a little journey. But then you can literally, all you do is just click right on your phone. And I don't know how it works. I'm like, because I'm a bit blonde anyway, so technology is not really my strong point. But I was like, how am I doing this?
Yeah, but that's like being at a gig though, isn't it? Like stage right is always my place.
Yeah.
Not being able to go to the place that I always go.
So frustrating.
So frustrating. So if you can get your angle where you like to watch it from, and the bonus, there's no tall person in front of you.
Yeah, no cold beer or worse flying through the air. Mind you, I take that now, to be honest. I miss those days.
Honestly, the things that we would put up with now just to go back and see a live gig.
Everything. We go back to Sam.
Yeah, Mike, Dan, anything from you guys?
No, not from me. It's been really good to hear everyone's opinion on things. So thanks everybody for joining in.
Mike?
Yeah, same thing. I found it really interesting, and to hear from everybody about the views and stuff is, for me, it's a big eye opener as well. And I just feel for you all, because it's just a tough time, and trying to break through. For me, I'm just worried about what comes next. There's going to be bands and artists that are going to give up. There's going to be venues that close down. Fair enough. Once we're all out again, you're going to have to start doing matinee performances. 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 7 o'clock at night, just to fulfill the wishes of people, I suppose.
Exactly.
But it's a shame, because I think this is one of the best periods of new music I've experienced in the 30 odd years I've been listening to new music and bands. And I'm worried that they're just going to get forgotten and they won't get heard, and it's quite heartbreaking in places. Sorry, not very positive, is it?
Sam?
See, I told you I'm not very good with this. I just think really some amazing points, and it's been really interesting to hear from everybody. And I'm going to take a lot as well from this, but I'm just going to keep on doing what I do and just supporting bands as much as I can, like retweeting, buying merch, doing my playlist every day. Just carry on, just keeping up the new music fight, because I know how much it means to all of you guys, and it does mean to us as well, because we're emotionally invested in you now. I think Dan will agree. Like, me and Dan are so involved with like all you upcoming artists and bands. It just means so much to us, and as much as it does to you. So just got our fingers crossed that over the next few months things will start to improve, and maybe like they can gradually start opening things. And when the spring comes, maybe some outdoor gigs, like some of the ones, like the socially distanced ones. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely, no, 100%, Sam. And I think what Shell was saying is that we're starting a really strong discussion of how this industry can be really fairer. And so it's going to be, it's not going to be in the short term, it's going to be in the long term. But like next week, we're going to chat with Sonstream, Seb, who's another, really small new streaming platform. But it's not, not surrendering to things as they are right now, but just going on, because there's amazing artists out there. I mean, you're here, guys, you're absolutely amazing, and you just need to be persistent and be creative and be authentic, as Shell was suggesting, and I think it's going to be really working fine.
Yeah, don't stop making new music, because they'll have nothing to do otherwise. So
exactly,
keep good music coming, and we'll always find a way to help you out and get it out there as best we can.
Yeah,
it's like an endurance test, isn't it? You've just got to keep going. I mean, how many artists pre-COVID have you seen that it's taken years for them to break? I mean, I'm looking at the likes of Elbow and I Am Clute from Manchester. How many albums did I Am Clute release before they got like the notoriety? So you know, you just got to keep going. And I know it sounds so easy to say that, but it's the truth of the matter. And I think it's the same for anybody working in the creative industry right now. You got to keep your essence and keep your positivity and just keep going.
And enjoy it as well. I always kind of, bands come to me saying like, oh, what can we do to like try and get heard on social media? And I always say, just make sure that at the end of the day, whatever you do, just always enjoy being in a band. Like, it's every kid's dream, isn't it, to be in a band growing up? I always say to them, just enjoy it. So don't let the rest of it stress you out too much, because if you let that take over, then it's going to stress you out, and you don't need stress. So you've come and done it because you love music. So the performing will come back. I know that's kind of like what the bands are missing the most, is performing live, that whole atmosphere. But I just think don't get too stressed out about it. Just chill out, enjoy making music, let the creativity flow. When it does, don't get too stressed out if it doesn't. It's a hard time, but I'm sure that things will get better. We've come over the worst of it anyway. At least we've got a vaccine on the horizon this time.
No, absolutely, 100%. And hard times are gonna pass. Guys, thank you so much with being with me this evening, and I really appreciate. Thank you for everyone watching at home, and I hope we're gonna see each other around in a couple of weeks' time in another round table. Let's go on, chatting.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It was lovely.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks very much.
Everybody.
Cheers.